The really interesting bit of information is that he played in the US junior contract bridge team. Like John Solder, now we were going to have Dina Katz and Harold Levinsky, but the table was too short. And anyway, they're in England. So we got a 2-for-1 in John Solder. John, Associate Professor at Texas Tech University, arguably, certainly the leading, arguably the best financial planning school here in the US, and that would make it the best in the world. Recently tenured, round of applause for John, but also works in the Levinsky and Katz practice as a planner. So we've got an academic who does actually get his hands dirty, which I think is terrific. Dave Yeski and Lisa Bury. One of the power couples in financial planning. Now, I meant to actually check this with you, Dave. I think it's true to say you were the first full-time practitioner who got a PhD. Is that correct? Let's just say it is. Okay, that would be. You would know.
It hasn't been scientifically measured, but we're going to go.
We're going to go with that. Okay. You would know Dave he writes regularly about evidence-based planning. He's held a number of positions in the FPA. Alyssa, about 5 years ago, I went and saw Alyssa do where would that have been? Denver. Do a presentation on the first interview with a prospective new client, and it's the single best presentation I've ever seen on the topic, and one of the best financial planning presentations I've ever seen. Are you doing anything at this one? No?
I already spoke today and I gave FinaMetrica a big plug.
Thank you very much. Well, if you missed a session, you missed a great session.
It's videotaped.
Excellent. Marty's...
What do you say about Marty?
What do you say about Marty? Marty's firm was one of the first to start using FinaMetrica in the US. We launched here in 2002, and I'm pretty sure Marty's firm started in 2002. Runs a very successful financial planning firm, immediate past president of the FPA, a great supporter of the international community, which we much appreciate, and an all-round nice guy. On the end of the table, Deborah Fox, some of you would know. Deborah has a planning practice of her own, but also runs the Fox Financial Planning Network, which is about helping people run efficient and effective practices, providing systems, procedures, templates. I was a financial planner. I started financial planning in Australia in 1975. As far as we were concerned, we'd invented it. There was nobody like Deborah to help. Boy, she would have been a huge asset. We made an enormous amount of mistakes, and it would have been very helpful. So I'm just going to ask everybody just to do 2 or 3 minutes about various aspects of FinaMetrica. Then they can grab a beer as they leave or stay as they choose, and I'll do a few minutes more. Okay, Michael, can we start with you? And down the table, I think that's the way to go.
Thanks, Jim. It's good to be here. I can't even remember how many years ago it was that I first kind of came across FinaMetrica. It was probably 8 or 9 years ago now. And what it struck me was already looking at our industry at this wide range of various questionnaires that we use to evaluate risk tolerance for clients that basically looked like someone just sat down and wrote a bunch of questions that seemed like they would sound pretty good. Which we did because regulators sort of required us to ask some questions of this nature, and they didn't seem particularly robust. They often really weren't even well written, and I started wondering, like, is there some better way to go about doing this? And as I started researching, looking down that road, what I ultimately ended up finding was FinaMetrica and this whole robust science behind there actually is a science to how to properly construct tests for particularly psychological traits, which are otherwise kind of hard to measure because they're psychological and they're up here. And so I was really impressed with FinaMetrica going through it to sort of see, all right, well, yes, all these questionnaires we've historically used are bad. That actually doesn't mean risk tolerance is immeasurable or that you can't go down this road. It's that you just need to use something that's actually got some science behind it to validly, reliably measure what you're trying to measure. And still to date, FinaMetrica is really the only offering I've seen that has any level of science behind it in how the questionnaire and the process was designed to ensure it is actually measuring what it is intended to measure. And so I continue to be impressed and I find FinaMetrica unique from that perspective. It's just it actually has the science of how you design a test to do this properly, not just kind of wing it with interesting questions that seem like they might work, but clearly don't.
Thanks, Michael. John.
So I'll attack. Can you hear me okay?
Just keep it close. It's on. Just keep it close.
I'll attack it from 3 different areas. From practice side, I'll echo what Michael just said, that a big part is the psychometric testing, that it really is measuring what we want it to measure and differentiating people to that respect as well. You know, why do we worry about risk tolerance? You know, we worry about our clients doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. This is a major component to us building an investment plan for our clients. We take the risk tolerance idea very seriously because it's definitely counteractive to for a client to sell in a bad market, and they're not going to be able to meet their goals because they're selling at guaranteeing that loss. Carrying that forward to the university, Jeff and FinaMetrica have been very kind, not only to Texas Tech but to any school that wants to incorporate this in the coursework. That I take what we do in practice and how we use this, and I teach our investment management course, and this is a very big component in that as well. Students understand how to do it, they do it for themselves, they have to analyze their own risk tolerance and analyze the findings of their fellow students. From a research standpoint, Jeff's also, in the company has been very generous with the data they have. So not only research that benefits planning itself, but we've had students at Texas Tech complete their dissertation using this data, helping answer some of these questions of what are the determinants of risk tolerance in terms of demographic factors. Helps us know that men are more risk tolerant than women are. Income has an effect, wealth has an effect. Things I find interesting they've done actually also is finding that there's not a lot of change through the recession. And I find that interesting. So it's kind of thinking of this risk tolerance versus risk behavior, that the behavior is what we worry about when the tolerance gets breached.
Thanks, John.
So, I did. So one of my colleagues, one of my buddies from my doctoral program, actually did his dissertation on risk assessment, and specifically risk assessment tools. And one of the things that he did is he actually collected, I don't know how many, I've read it, I can't remember, he collected hundreds of instruments from sources all over the country, all different kinds of organizations. And among the many things he did, one of them was to take a common fact pattern and feed it through all of these instruments that he had collected. And what he found is that he got radically, wildly different results from all of them. And one of the reasons for that was that they were all kind of informally thrown together by people who, I think in many cases, organizations built it because they thought they needed to have one. They didn't necessarily care if it was a good one or a valid one. Now, Elise and I have a phrase that we use at our company, evidence-based financial planning, which many of you have heard us repeat again and again, and it's very, very meaningful for us. It's not just a catchphrase, it actually deeply informs how we think about financial planning, how we perform financial planning, how we serve our clients. And so wherever possible, we like to use instruments that have been psychometrically validated, been shown to be psychometrically valid, and that have actually been empirically confirmed, empirically validated. And this is the only instrument we know of when it comes to the area of risk tolerance that fits those dual criteria. And so it's incredibly important for us, based on our values as a firm and how we choose to practice, that we have this in our toolkit. And this is the kind of thing that I guess the other piece I'm going to touch on is, Elise and I did a presentation today called Evidence-Based Financial Planning to Learn Like a CFP, which is sort of based on some unfolding things, this unfolding sort of thread of thought and inquiry we've been engaged in that resulted in a journal article last year and has resulted in a number of presentations and conversations with people from all over the world. And one of our theses is that to continue to advance as a profession, to emerge fully as a true profession, we really have to be committing ourselves to the kind of research that leads to empirically validated instruments and approaches. And so not only is this important as a tool, the thing you touched on, John, that I think is critically important is that you now have more than a decade of really good data that you're making available to academics to use to expand our body of knowledge in truly important ways. And so I applaud you for that. That's a really, in a sense, I feel like being involved with FinaMetrica is not just getting access to a really good tool that's consistent with our values, but it's also being part of a community that's committed to actually advancing the body of knowledge, and that also matters very much to us.
Thanks.
So I'm not going to repeat everything Dave just said. I agree with him. Obviously, they're the same firm. So I'm just going to tell a story. I have longtime clients. I'm going to call them Dan and Carol, and been clients for decades. But ever since Dan retired, he has all of a sudden come to know a lot more about what we should be doing with his investment portfolio, including wanting to get out of the market when things look bad. And he worked in nuclear engineering, so after the Japan earthquake, he was confident he knew more than the rest of the world. And I'm not making fun of him. I'm saying familiarity is a tough one. He was convinced he knew more about what was going to happen with the nuclear reactors over there, and that there was going to be a worldwide meltdown. So, fast forward a little bit. Shortly thereafter, he and his wife asked them to do the FinaMetrica surveys. And by the way, I used the kind of risk tolerance surveys that everyone has talked about for decades that were apparently telling me nothing, despite the fact that I was fairly confident they were. But they were not evidence-based, obviously. So Dan and Carol do the FinaMetrica survey. Dan's risk tolerance comes out, it's fairly not a risk taker, but really solidly. Carol's is super low risk tolerance. Carol has never peaked about the portfolio. So this created a huge opportunity to have a conversation about risk perception, and that in reality, if Dan's portfolio was really well suited to his risk tolerance, but it was not. But his risk perception was huge because he thought he knew so much about what was going on in the world. And so through this conversation, he promised, and he has kept his promise. He's stopped watching CNBC. He has stopped reading the financial newspapers. He said, you know what, I am so sick and tired of feeling scared about this. And he goes, why am I ruining my retirement by doing all this? So it was the risk tolerance, the surprising results under the circumstances of the risk tolerance, the FinaMetrica surveys, that led to a really great conversation. And he has not one time has he made a peep since he made that promise.
Thanks, Lisa.
When we talk to people, what do they want from us? Advice? I was reading a book several years ago. Peter Block's book's named Community. It's a good book. I was doing it for my association group. And I ran into a sentence in there that just blew me away. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. These are Marty's words. Advice kills conversation. Kind of an ominous statement for financial advisors. Because Lisa's right. Having a conversation is the point of the thing. Then he goes on a few paragraphs later, kind of saves the day a little bit. He says, but our real job is to create curiosity. So people will probe into what they need to probe into, discover what they need to discover, and feel better about the decisions that they made. Because we are living not in a world of stable entities and statistics. We're living in a world of uncertainty. We put in the FinaMetrica system. We mail out the fact finder with our new client packet or lead packet. And when they come in, we hope they have it filled out. And we go over it with them if they engage us. Well, we might show it to them if they didn't too. But we want to start a conversation. And we want to talk about how they feel. And how they feel about uncertainty. And how they feel about talking to each other about their feelings as a couple. So, as Jeff said, we've used it for probably a decade. We've had people take it 3, 4, just a lot of times. They'll say, I need to take it again. It was really interesting in the meltdown of 08. A lot of people came in and said, no, my risk tolerance has really changed. This portfolio isn't right for me. I would say 9 out of 10 times they retook it, they scored exactly the same, within a point or two. So it's been an effective tool. We love it, and I would recommend it to anyone.
Thanks very much, Mark.
Thank you. Well, I was so worried having to go last that I wouldn't have anything left to talk about, but I do. So the first thing, and maybe some of you are feeling that way, when I first looked at FinaMetrica years ago and heard that it was based on psychometric testing, I said, wow, that sounds great. And then I realized, well, what is psychometric testing regarding a risk profiling tool? And so for those of you that may not know exactly, what I love about this tool is that it allows, the tool will identify certain characteristics of an individual and compare that to a group, a larger group, to see how they fit into this whole sampling group. And your sampling group now is hundreds of thousands of people. So the report that is generated allows them to really start understanding themselves and see how they compare to other people. And so this discussion point, as others have mentioned, is just so valuable to have with our clients. Secondly, we are in a completely different era as far as I'm concerned. I've been in practice for 28 years, and I don't know, how many of you feel since 2008 your practice is run very differently, different conversations, different workday, everything has changed. And so this tool it helps you work more efficiently. And I think that is so important because there is more hand-holding required. There is more complicated discussions having to be had with clients in a secular bear market. So we're all about working efficiently, and that's what we're known for. And so this tool helps us work most efficiently in the risk profiling area. And also, probably, I think, top of our list is it helps us be compliant. We want all of our systems documented, which in our practice we do. That's what we're known for. We have all of our processes fully documented, even for every part of our client services. And this is such an important aspect that if you can do something in a standardized way and be able to document in real terms how your client answered a risk profiling questionnaire, it's invaluable. So it's built into our processes, and it is a very effective way to be compliant in this particular space. And it also integrates with lots of different technology. We believe that technology really helps us work more efficiently. So the fact that this is a cloud technology, it integrates with the popular financial planning software applications and many others. And so that, again, helps us work more efficiently. So in the end, it just helps us, number one, understand our clients better, help them understand themselves better, and help us work more efficiently. And I'll end with a quick story, because just this past week, we have a newer client that we had both the husband and wife take the profile online. They're retired. And we actually give our clients 2 risk profiles. One is more of a situational one, just on paper, just to have some additional conversations, and FinaMetrica is the main one we use. And what we have found with all these other risk profiles, including this other one that we use, is that the majority of people end up in a moderate risk profile. How many of you find that the majority of your clients end up testing moderate? Like this big bell-shaped curve. So this couple tested moderate with our non-scientific one, and with FinaMetrica, the wife scored a 30, which put her at only 2% of people that come up with that score, very low, where the husband was at 56. That didn't get caught by the other one. That's what FinaMetrica does for you. It brings out what the true risk profile of your clients are, and to have those invaluable discussions. It is the only thing out there, as far as I'm concerned, as far as risk profiling. You guys have done an amazing job on that.
Thank you very much. Now, those who want to disappear,
Yeah, sorry.
grab a beer as you go.
We know you're going to be brilliant, but...